Welcome to another edition of Here's the Pitch. I'm Brad, your podcast friend. I'm joined again by Mike. He is just a friend, not a podcast friend. We're trying video this time. Hi.
That's right. Hey, Brad.
Is that what you look like for real?
What's that?
Is that what you really look like?
Yeah, my quarantine was not treating me well, but I had anniversary and Mother's Day, so I had to clean up. So you get me at my finest.
Well, I think you look great. And you can watch these on YouTube. If you already are watching on YouTube, then you know that already. But yes, YouTube, and then please check out /ST Weekly. Sports Talk Weekly is my former show. That is where I do the YouTube thing. But we had so much wonderful feedback on the first one of these that we did. We're going to keep trying and doing them.
I'm shocked.
I didn't really get any.
Have another go.
I was going to say we didn't really get any feedback, but I see people are listening to them, so that's a sign.
That's a good sign.
Okay. Yeah. Let's get to it. So we did number 3 and number 22. I have a few other little topics today that we were going to run through. But I sent you a note. I said I like number 30 for this week. Number 30 in Cardinal history.
30 sounds fun. We were very hitter heavy last time, and 30 get a little bit of a mix, but a lot more arms to talk about this go around.
Number 30. So I just going to start, I guess, with Orlando Cepeda. That's the first big one I see. 67, 68. Cha-cha. I mean, I didn't see that. It's my dad's era, though, so you can't start this list. I mean, you can go back. There are a bunch of number 30s before that, but I think that's the first name I recognized.
Right, and he's going to be the best 30 for a couple of reasons. One, because of his pedigree, but also because the number 30 isn't exactly an exclusive number. And yeah, Cepeda is the one that jumps out because he's the best player on the list.
So you think Cepeda is the best player? I don't know. I'm going to go back to 1999 and Alberto Castillo. I mean, who can't forget those years?
Yeah, that year.
Okay. Well, we'll go in order. So after Cepeda, you had Tony Scott, late 70s. Heard of him, didn't see much of him, wasn't alive to watch that. Any Tony Scott stats you have there?
No,
okay.
I don't.
Here's an interesting thing. Joaquin Andujar, when he came to the Cardinals, I always think of him as number 47. Wearing number 30 doesn't seem right, but he wore number 30 in 1981 in his first year as a Cardinal. I don't ever remember seeing any video of that. And it doesn't seem right. He needs like a crooked number on his back.
Yeah, he has to, and because that's the one that's etched in memory. But it's shocking how many Cardinals have that change from the first year number to the later years number. I guess he's just another guy that's in that boat.
80, 81, 82, when Whitey came over, he was, he had Raleigh fingers for 3 days here. So he was making trades quick left and right. So whoever the Buddy Bates, I guess, would have been the equipment manager back then. Maybe we'll get Buddy on here or Rip one day because we'll have to ask him about just having to change these numbers out. But you're right. Bill Lyons, infielder, not Steve Lyons. Any memories of Bill Lyons?
This guy kept his pants on.
Is it Steve Lyons' only memory in baseball is taking his pants off? And then I think he said something kind of risque a couple years back, kind of cost him a job. Getting
hostile on broadcasts.
Okay, but that's not this. That's Bill. That's no. Steve Lyons. It's Bill Lyons. 80.
Really,
all right,
very tepid.
So I picked number 30. I picked 22 last week because Jack Clark was my favorite pitcher of all time. Number 30, John Tudor, greatest Cardinal pitcher lefty of all time.
Agreed. And, I mean, you talk about World Series heroics and the guy that just came to the park and was your best guy for arguably of the decade, I think for sure. And just, he's the iconic number 30. He's got a key part in Cardinal history. Why is he your favorite?
I loved, well, first he won every game, it seemed like, when I was a kid. Like from June 1985 on till, this is a true stat, and off the top of my head, maybe you'll look it up, I don't know. I should have looked it up. From June of 1985, he started 1-7, everyone remembers that, and then went 21-1 in 1985, or 20-1, something crazy. I believe he was like 45-10 from mid-1985 on to the point where he was traded. 45-10. I know wins they don't matter, but back then they did. By then he had 13 complete games. 10 of those were shutouts. I saw a stat. I saw one where he had 10 shutouts that year, which is like more than 5 like big name pitchers have in their career. I can't remember their names. Of course, I should have done a little more research, but it was the young kids, but big names, and they haven't gotten to 10 shutouts combined. I mean, if Dwight Gooden doesn't throw the 153 ERA out there, this John Tudor season will be remembered, not just in Cardinal history. I think, and that's, as a kid, I just remember John Tudor winning every game, except, of course, in Game 7 of that 1985 World Series. Yeah. But if you look, his innings were up. He had thrown 275 innings in the regular season. He had never gotten to that point, so he'd already pitched all those games in the playoffs. It's so sad to me that he didn't win Game 7. Like, you just kind of expected. I was, 8? And I just thought, John Tudor's pitching. We're fine after Game 6.
No worries.
Didn't work that way.
Yeah. But, John Tudor on the number 30, you don't see a lot of those jerseys around. And that's why when people, I just got through my 30th birthday a couple of years ago, and friends doing that too. And if they're Cardinals friends, it's like, why not a John Tudor jersey for your 30th birthday? The number 30, you can go a different couple ways with the jersey. It's not one that you see. Like, everybody has a Freeze jersey or a Molina jersey or a Pujols jersey from back in the day. Just get something different from the 80s. Not McGee, not Smith. Just get a Tudor jersey. I think that's really cool if you hit that milestone.
And the reason why I'm spending so much time on Tudor and why I like this number is it's a big number, number 30. That's a fun number to have in your Cardinal or in your baseball lexicon of jerseys. We don't have many 30s after this. So John Tudor pitched from 85 to 88, and then in 89, Don Hinkle came in. Don Hinkle, all I remember him was my Aunt Betty had a crush on him. She thought he was cute.
How'd that work out for Aunt Betty?
I can tell a story right here for Aunt Betty. And my mom and grandma went to spring training in 1989. It was my first spring training. We drove in the van together. My mom, her sister, Betty, and her mom, who was in her late 60s at that point, mid-60s. So let's just say me and then 3 old ladies. It was like the Golden Girls going to spring training. We stayed at the hotel next to Al Lang, which was so cool back then, that you would just walk from your hotel, which I guess they have now in Jupiter. There's a hotel right there. But that night, the Sunday night, there was some sort of players' union meeting, seemingly, because not just Cardinals. Like I remember I was watching. I got autographs from the Pirates, the Blue Jays. I think all the teams that were around. So Bradenton, Dunedin, and she met Don Hinkle that night. She's like, "Oh my God, that's my favorite player of all. I'm going to work on this." It was Aunt Betty. She reminds me of Rue McClanahan, honestly. To be honest, from Golden Girls. So I didn't work out. Don Hinkle was into something else at that point. Tell me if this is wrong though. Maybe I'll take a picture of this. So I'd get all these autographs. I mean, Doug Drabeck. I got his autograph on this Cardinal yearbook. And then under it, I would write their names so I could remember who it was. And some friends of mine, as I got home, said, "You just ruined that thing." Did I ruin it?
It's a purpose, but also you don't want to be 20 years later and say, "What the hell is this?" Because it'll be hard to find a Doug Drabeck validation there or help. Maybe if you could scan it and see it, but it'd probably be hard to find if you didn't notate it. But maybe next time use a Post-it, maybe on the back, and then you don't ruin the actual autograph.
Okay, so I screwed it up.
So did Aunt Betty have the number 30 jersey for Don Hinkle? That's the question.
I don't think she went that far.
Okay.
Don Hinkle, he had like a great sinker. If you look at 1989, he pitched pretty early. He had a few starts, and I was like invested now. I was hoping Don Hinkle. I'm like, oh, my Aunt Betty's going to marry a Cardinal. Like as a kid, she says she has a crush. They meet. And now you're like, you think it's going to happen, right? So when Don Hinkle didn't work out in '89, I was sad for Aunt Betty. But then she met Uncle Joe, and everything happily ever after. He was not a Cardinal, but all right. After Don Hinkle, John Tudor comes back for 1990s. Have you seen John Tudor pitch in 1990? By the way, have you ever seen any highlights of that?
I don't, and the fact that I don't remember tells me it's not pretty.
He went 12-4, had like a 2 ERA, but he was throwing wiffle balls. Like he had literally kind of reinvented himself. His arm was pretty much dead at this point, and he was floating the ball up there. But it was so. This is why I love watching John Tudor pitch, because it was like a wiffle ball, and he had this ballet type pitching motion where it was just so fluid. And I'd never seen anyone before or since throw like him. But in 1990, he's even admitted at some points to me, like, I had nothing. I have no idea how I got 12 wins that year. But yeah, I don't know. I'm a John Tudor fan. Have I said that?
Yeah, you have. 90 seems like such a weird lost year for me in like Cardinals lore. I'm not sure why.
One time on this podcast, we will talk in depth about 1990, but it's the last time I think the Cardinals had to rebuild. In my ever history, it was Willie McGee was a free agent. I believe Ozzie was a free agent. He did sign. Terry Pendleton was a free agent. Vince Coleman, free agent. All at the end of the year. Whitey quit in the middle. Whitey Herzog said, "I'm done with this." It's an amazing thing. That's the last time they've never finished in last place. Or they hadn't finished in last place since 1917. They still haven't finished in last place since. It's a crazy. We're going to do that. It's a team.
And John Tudor was 12-4. That's crazy.
And Dan John Tudor was 12-4. Jose De Leon was like 7-19. Joe McGrain lost 17. It was, but yes, then John Tudor came out and would win every game he pitched. We will do something on John Tudor in 1990. But I'm glad you asked. Bucky Dent, not listed. Again, we go to Baseball Reference or Baseball Almanac for these numbers, so they don't show the coaches. But in my memory, I remember Bucky Dent coming onto the Joe Torre staff and wearing number 30. Bucky
Does
Dent.
he have a middle name?
If you're in Boston, yeah.
Okay.
But I don't even understand how he became. I don't even understand the connection between him and Joe Torre. Like I would have to do some digging. What Bucky Dent was doing as a Cardinal, even as a coach, was weird to me. Mm. All right, the next player was Todd Stottlemyre. So now we're going to hit your wheelhouse. I love Todd Stottlemyre. So here we go with the pitchers, right? John Tudor, Todd Stottlemyre. We got Dustin Hermanson and Brett Tomko coming up. So we got these great names. But Todd Stottlemyre was a Bulldog. Again, he was one of those former Oakland A guys that Tony brought with him that we talked about last time.
Yeah, and really you talk about the pitching in the 90s, and you might find a year or two where there's some stability, but the pitching in the 90s overall was, compared to the 80s and what came after, not very good. But Stottlemyre, he was an ace for a couple of years down that stretch, opening day starter a few times, a key guy to have around, and of course the pitching lineage, always in that, and he had the flow. Can't forget the flow.
And he seemed like a badass. I was always scared of him. He looked like somebody's going to kick your ass no matter what, but never really did. He wrote a book, and I tried getting him on here last year, and never. We had set some stuff up, and then he went off the grid. I don't know where he went. Is
he not a guy that comes around the Cardinals most of this stuff?
Not yet. I bet if he knew that there was some pay there, though, he might. But yeah, he's just not part of that. Yeah, it's funny about that 96 rotation because you get him, you get Andy Bennis, you get a young Alan Bennis. They replace Jeff Parrott, Mike Morgan, Vincente Palacios, and Danny Jackson, who we'll talk about in a little bit. So
some of those guys were key in a trade, though.
Yeah. Well, Tony came in and said, "Who are these effing guys? I am not letting these guys pitch on my rotation." So he brought some of his guys over. So after Stottlemyre was here till 98. I don't really remember him pitching in the McGuire year, honestly, but it wasn't great. His 96 was pretty good. 97, okay, and then he was getting older. Alberto Castillo, the only real catcher on this list, which leads me to our next topic in a little bit. But Alberto Castillo, number 30 in 1999. Not many memories of him. I remember he had a mustache.
I do remember the flashy gear. He was always off color scheme because everybody had been but he would wear a all silver. And really change it up. He had a different catcher's gear that I remember ever seeing a Cardinals catcher wear. That was my Alberto Castillo.
You might be right, like a gray pad instead of the red.
Yeah,
I think I can see that. We'll look it up as you're watching on video, possibly on YouTube. Another backup, Wilson Delgado wore it in 02. I don't know how Wilson Delgado gets the number. I don't understand.
Right, because he was a middle infielder, right, and just kind of a deaf guy.
Little guy.
Maybe he was a guy that wanted 3, and obviously that number was locked down at the time, so got to pop up 0 on it. I'm not sure.
I love when we weave back into an old podcast that we just did last weekend because number 3 was what we talked about. Dustin Hermanson wore it in 01. He was on the 2000 team, and I believe he wore number 32, so he changed to 30. If we ever do something on facial hair, this guy
Yeah.
That's what I remember him for.
Great facial hair. Also, he and Steve Klein came over together. And so two like very outlandish kind of dudes, weird personalities. Hermanson, the facial hair, and then obviously Klein. I mean, you could write a book on its own with him.
One day we may just spend the whole like podcast talking about the 2000 team, because Mike James is on that team as well. Had some odd piercings and facial hair and all kinds of weird things going on. We talked about Sean Dunston and Eric David. Yeah, that's a weird team and some strange. It's kind of like the mixing of the end of the 90s, early like this was the very end of kind of fun in baseball. It seems like they're all the same now. They're all on Instagram. They're all sort of kind of worried about their profile. Back then, these guys would never have been on Instagram. I don't think they would have been. Hey, look what I'm doing tonight.
I'm
shaving my face.
Different eras.
Brett Tomko continues on the pitching woes of number 30 in 03. 1 year, one and done. How many one? I mean, there's not a lot of one and dones in Cardinal history. Remember, he was going to be like kind of the next thing, it felt like, or something, the next something.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you brought him in to be a back-end starter, that we that's what the Cardinals would do. They'd find these aging guys. They'd see what kind of juice they could get out of one squeeze for them. But Tomko, I think, was supposed to be a little bit more of a longer-term play. It didn't happen that way. But I remember, and this is just the folly of the Cardinals fans, when you see them turn over guys like Joel Pinheiro. You think that you have a guy that can come in and throw innings, that there'll be somebody that they can turn into, an above 500 pitcher. And seemingly that's what happens, but it doesn't mean you have to be good to get there.
Number 35, Joel Pinheiro, by the way. Also Matt Morris. Maybe we'll do 35 at some point. All right, Mark Mulder's the next 30. So here we go. That's a huge trade. It's one of those, like, you remember where you were. I kind of remember. I know I was out somewhere drinking, and I'm like, we got Mark. How did we get Mulder? Like, how did this?
Right.
How did this? And I'm like one of those dumb fans. This is like, oh, we got the one that I wanted. And I didn't want Zito. I don't know what he's going to be. Oh, Hudson. This is the guy I wanted. Was I wrong?
And I mean, at the time, he was the one with the arrow going up. So you remember Mulder's rookie year was he in the AL and Dontrell Willis in the NL, and these guys just came on the scene. These young lefties just like killing it, and those were the guys that you're like, wow, you gotta watch them. And the fact that we were able to get him, it's like as you're chasing to put them over the top, coming off losing a World Series. Here's the chess move to get you to where you need to be. And then you have not a whole lot of success. You have the injury, and then it's still happening with Adam Wainwright and Mark Mulder on the sideline. Just kind of like a overall, just interesting thing.
You've lost your train of thought. And that's fine. That happens sometimes. And I'm going to point it out when it happens. I've done it too. I love when Mulder tried the comeback and was doing this with his. If you get to see the video, I was sort of shot putting it, and it was like, I think it was a game in Philly where he literally decided, I'm not even going to throw it home. I'm just going to try to pick off the guy at first. Like he tried the whole, I'll just hit the guy, and then wasn't there a pitcher that was doing that? He's like, I can't really get anybody out, but maybe I can pick him off. But that was exactly. I mean, when I remember the video. We did, as a Fox Sports producer for pregames, we did a Mark Mulder update more, I think, in the history of Cardinals live pregame shows than any other player. Mark Mulder he's in the bullpen, he threw a session. The next day, not feeling so well, he's going to take 10 days off next day. All right, 10 days later, he comes back. He's trying a new motion. Okay, that didn't work. We're going to shut him down. I mean, it was like nonstop that went on from 07 to 08 with Mark Mulder. I believe that was the most reported injury in the history of Cardinals live.
Well, and because it was an important trade with a lot of pressure, and when you're shipping one of your top prospects out, you want to see that return on investment. And so that's why it was under a microscope. Would you make that trade again if you're the GM? of the Cardinals.
Who did we trade to get him? I forgot.
Dan Herron.
No. Well, I mean, no, obviously not. You're talking about now, if I know, or just
if you know that you won a World Series.
Not with him.
Mulder.
No, he wasn't really. He pitched early in the year, but he wasn't part of that staff.
He wasn't on the World Series roster.
I don't think he pitched at all after like September.
Right. So this is where I was going earlier. You won 06 without Mulder. You won 11 without Wainwright. Right. So knowing that you would get 2 World Series in that time frame, knowing that if you don't trade Dan Herron, then that you'd probably have more overall success with another pitcher in that position, but you aren't sure that you'd get a world championship. Do you do it?
Well, I always bet on the thing that I know. Okay. So I will make the trade again. I don't ever want to hear how often have the Cardinals been correct. Now, this is very weird how the Cardinals just seem to hit on pitching all the time when they make drafts and when they find pitchers and they can make them be good pitchers for a long time. They seemingly can't do it with position players. So I'm kind of contradicting myself, but I don't want to hear about the potential of this young kid. Now, like Jack Flaherty, I don't want to trade Jack Flaherty. But at that time, we can get one of the big 3 from Oakland, I make the trade. I mean, you can't. I don't know if he was damaged goods, and maybe they knew that in Oakland, and that's the way business works sometimes. It seems like he may have been because, I mean, he just wasn't the same guy once he got here. But just not knowing and just thinking you're getting the Mark Mulder of 2001, 2002, 2003, and he's going to continue. He's at 31 years old at that point. Yeah, I make the trade.
Okay.
If that's what you're asking. Next guy to wear number 30, John Smoltz. So we got a Hall of Famer. You just think of him in number 29, his whole career, but he's going to wear number 30 here for the Cardinals and have some actual big moments. I mean, I love that John Smoltz's career did not end as terrible as it was in Boston because he had like an 8 ERA, and he comes here and he figures it out somehow.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't always pretty, but he was a guy that you needed outs and people weren't hitting him hard, and that's another postseason team that you would just love to get one more round just to see what they could do because there's a lot of leadership on that team. They were so hot towards the end of the year. Smoltz was a part of that kind of resurgence. There, you had the Pujols holiday show. You just need a little bit extra to get them to that next round.
They had 2 pitchers that were top 3 in Cy Young. I still just can't believe they got swept by the Dodgers that year. Carp wasn't good in Game 1. Game 2 is the holiday boner play, and then Game 3 it's over. I mean, it was so quick. Those 3-game series, that's how it can work, though. You know.
Yeah, right, and it worked to their advantage in 11 against that Philadelphia team that had that same kind of thing. Hamels, Oswalt, Holiday, and Carpenter was able to steal that series from them. So it kind of works both ways. But yeah, that year the voting, Tim Lincecum gets Cy Young when Wainwright and Carpenter, and even I think Cardinals fans were divided on who that went to. So it wasn't necessarily difficult to see how the rest of the baseball voters would be.
Yeah, it split for both of them, baseball-wise and St. Louis-wise. Smoltz in 09, I have a story. I have 2 stories now that we're talking about 09. Smoltz, that was one of the years I traveled for playoffs with the Fox Sports Midwest. I remember going towards L.A. and being on the bus. And at this point, I mean, just a little inside baseball, most of the times the media is on one bus with rookies and management, and then the veterans get their own bus. But in the playoffs, there's family, and there's many buses, and you just get on a bus. So I'm on a bus, and in the back is Smoltz and Wainwright and Carpenter, all the pitchers. And Smoltz is on the phone with his wife, and his wife is clearly just saying, honey, when you left the trash out, you didn't do the dishwasher, and you can just hear all these things, and then Wainwright and Carpenter look and go, so I guess being in the Hall of Fame doesn't even matter. I mean, no matter how great our careers are, we're still going to be having problems at home when we get home. So I thought that was funny that John Smoltz was still having to, he has a big start coming up and he's still dealing with that. Then.
Yeah. Well, that's probably why he plays so much golf now and why he does some announcing.
I think all those guys don't know what to do. It's a fun thing about baseball players. Like, they get to that end of the year and they're like, okay, this will be nice to be home for, and not be on the road and play baseball. And then, like, Jeff Suppan ends up in Omaha for the next 8 years being a coach in single A. And he's like, I love
teaching how to pinch run.
Yeah, I love teaching the way to play a squeeze play from third base. And then on the way home from that same series, Matt Holliday sat behind me, and Wainwright was on the bus as well. And he had his new daughter, one of his 8 daughters, 9 daughters. But this one just started, like, he literally count down. He's like, uh-oh, this is bad. And you couldn't hear anything. It's like, what is he talking about? He goes 3, 2, 1. And then this kid starts screaming left and just like bloody murder. And I thought, man, I feel bad for Matt Holliday. He just wants to, but it doesn't. It's the weirdest thing that it didn't seem to really. I mean, I'm sure he was pissed, but I had people text me and I said, guess who's sitting behind me? Matt Holliday. Anybody have anything they want to say? And my phone blew up. And I was like, I'm not probably going to say that to him. But I thought it's just interesting as a fan that you would say all these things at your home, but if he's sitting behind you, you probably wouldn't.
Right.
Which is what I did. I didn't say anything. He's a big man. And he might be on the show. He says he might. I doubt that. Jess Todd also was number 30 in 2009 before John Smoltz, who helped us get Chris Perez. Or who helped us get Chris Perez. Jess Todd goes to Cleveland for Mark DeRosa, as my memory serves. Is that Jess Todd memory? No? Okay.
No.
All right. So the big ones. We've spent about 30 minutes on number 30, and we haven't talked. But
30.
John Tudor, Todd Stottlemyre, Mark Mulder, and then Jason Motte. I think Jason Motte would be the 30 jersey you could wear around. Jason Motte started with number 70, I believe, then came down to 60, and then went in half to number 30. But Jason Motte from 2010 to 2014, a solid Cardinal, a guy who closes out a World Series. Him and Tudor, and Cepeda, probably the most famous number 30 here, as a Cardinal great.
Right. If you don't count you're right. I think so. And Mott, a heck of a guy too, and I think that plays a whole role in the whole legacy of him being a Cardinal, a leadership role, converted catcher from before that was being cool, and a guy that gave solidity to a bullpen situation that was always in flux. Recaptured it and had a brilliant Game 7.
Love me some Jason Motte. He leaves. Dan Johnson, 2015. Do you remember Dan Johnson?
Infielder?
Catcher. Hit a home run for Tampa Bay in the 2011 comeback, or the greatest night of baseball, 162. Only reason I know Dan Johnson is because I remember watching a Tampa game, and his walk-up song was The Safety Dance, which, as you possibly know, is my favorite song, but most people know is my favorite song. And in turn, he became my favorite player. And when I had to ask him, I said, why is this your favorite? Why is this your walk-up song? And he had no answer. And I was really angry about it. I wanted some great story. Have you seen the video? There's dancing midgets. It's the craziest, head trip you've ever seen. But Dan Johnson, one of my all-time favorites. And when he became a Cardinal, I was excited because it meant I'd hear Safety Dance at the ballpark more often.
And you probably still didn't hear it very often.
Didn't hear it. I don't think he ever got into bat. Now catching for Yadier Molina here in the 9th is Dan Johnson, number 30. So he wasn't here long. Jonathan Broxton. This guy is one of the turning points in Mo's the fandom of Mo. People love Mo or did love Mo, but then he gave John Broxton a 2-year contract for no reason. And all these little Brett Cecil. We can go through all these names of people, but Broxton was the first one where you're like, really? You need to give him 2 years? Was someone else going to pick him up? Nice gentleman, giant legs, big guy.
Wide as a house.
Didn't need to give him 2 years after that 2015 season.
Right.
They always seem to they overdo it with the bullpen thing, and they just still never gotten it right. It just doesn't seem like something that's ever going to work. that's insanity, right? I think Mo says that. He's like, the definition of insanity is doing something over and over. Well, paying relievers that you've never seen on your team for years, Brett Cecil, Broxton. I'm forgetting a couple others, but I digress.
And it's just funny how bullpens work out. And you can look at Colorado. They spent tons of money on bringing their current bullpen up, and that as their starting point. And it just doesn't work. And then, the Cardinals won a World Series with Josh Kinney and Randy Flores and, a hot Tyler Johnson and hodgepodge of bullpen guys getting thrown out there. So just kind of interesting.
Everybody, I think, when they saw the Royals do it, they said, well, that's the way to do it. But it's still, it has to be done. There's no rhyme or reason. It either works or it doesn't. I mean, picking up Wade Davis and who are all the guys that Colorado picked up, and they were not great. I mean, it was their idea. It was, hey, we haven't done anything right in the last 15 years in Colorado. Let's try this. Didn't work either. And Tyler Webb, by the way, is now your current number 30, who has potential if they ever get going again.
Wait, Tyler Webb.
So that is our tribute to number 30. That took a lot of time there. I got to say, I need a cigarette.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. You look at it and you're not overly impressed, and then you go through it, and how many stories come from guys that just remember and trigger certain things. So
again, we mentioned this on the last podcast. So I'm at the game. I sit there. Tyler Webb comes in, and I'll go, oh, that's John Tudor should be wearing that number. And then Mike might say, no, it's Jason Mott's number. And that's where this comes from, the numbers game. I enjoyed it. I hope you did too. I had another little topic, so we could do another number, but it might take a little while. So I created this little thing called Fearsome Foursome. I used to write these features, called them 5 for 5, Sunday Sevens, always a little alliteration. Fearsome Foursome, because I don't want to go crazy, but I call this one the Fearsome Foursome of big names who had bad years. Cardinals needed some help, didn't work out.
I think we just went through that list.
But this is now the cream of the crop.
The cream, all right.
And they're all from the 90s. So it tells you a little bit about what was going on. My first one's Rick Sutcliffe. They pick him up in 1994. He's a former Cub. That never works, right? You can't pick up a former Cub and think it's going to work, right? First and foremost.
Except for Ryan Theriot. That's it.
That didn't work. I know you love Ryan Theriot.
Corey Patterson did not work.
But Corey Patterson did not. I watched. What is Corey Patterson's most memorable thing that happened as a Cardinal? Do you remember?
It was something on the base paths.
It was an out. So I had to watch. I went back and watched some stuff because what else is there to do? There was a game in Philadelphia during that there was a 4-game series in Philadelphia in mid-September where the Phillies already had 97 wins. When I watched this, and Cardinals had to win every game, and the Phillies hadn't clinched yet they were on their way. And they were pitching their big four, Oswalt and Holiday and Cliff Lee. But the Cardinals had won, I think, the first game with Chambers, or maybe it's the second. Either way, Motte's on the hill, 2 outs, runner at second, 2-1 lead, pop up to right field. Here's Corey Patterson, and he drops it. Phillies tie it up. Then Adrian Chambers comes up and gets his first major league hit, which is an RBI, and the Cardinals go on and win the World Series.
Oh, gosh.
But Corey Patterson dropped that ball. I'll never forget it. I won't. You do, but I don't. So Rick Sutcliffe, 1994, was a former Cub, 38 years old. We're trying everything. The Cardinals are bad. He won 16 games in Baltimore in 2012. He had won 10 games in 93. His ERA wasn't great. He comes here, 6.52 ERA in 14 games. Do you remember Rick Sutcliffe pitching for the Cardinals?
I do, because growing up watching the Cardinals as much as you can, but watching WGN was the second most televised games that you get and a lot on during the day. So you see Sutcliffe as part of those Cubs teams. So he was a dude, and you realize that in his career he was a bulldog and he was a battler and gave a lot of innings and was good competition, and then just came here. A little bit of excitement, and then just what we got. You have to realize the guys over 35 just usually doesn't work, especially when you're trying to get max mileage out of a starting pitcher. And that was just personification of that over and over.
Yeah, Rick Sutcliffe, when he was good, like in 1984, was winning 20 games. He looked old and plodding then. Think of him 10 years later, looked like me trying to throw at fantasy camp. So these are the fearsome foursome. Big names, bad years, help wanted. Cardinals ask, didn't get it. 1997, Fernando Valenzuela. I love Fernando Valenzuela being a Cardinal. I love him being a Cardinal. It's my favorite thing. And he just looked miserable out there, but he still was somehow getting people out. So he was 0-4 with a 5.55 ERA and 5 starts with the Birds. Before that, in 96 with the Padres, he was 13-8 with a 3.62 ERA. So he still had a little something going on. I guess Walt thought, in 97, before he came here, he was 2-12. Not a great ERA. But Fernando Valenzuela, if you find any video of it, maybe I'll put some on this video podcast here if I can do that without getting license issues from MLB. I still love having Fernando Valenzuela, but I don't understand how. This is when Walt Jocketty still was feeling his way around.
Yeah, it's like all this throwback to the 80s, like guys that were iconic for their teams. And why was Fernando Valenzuela? It's like the Bartolo Colon thing. It's like, these guys that had their day in the sun. It's like, why are you? Some guys just love the game, and you remember him at the Fernando Mania in the Dodgers of the '80s, and all they were able to accomplish, and the ABBA song, for him, and a pretty cool historical baseball figure, and the Cardinals get to be a footnote on that, albeit an ugly one.
Sutcliffe retires a Cardinal. Fernando retires a Cardinal. And then you mentioned why was he playing still? I heard him on the phone also with his wife at this point, and it was in Spanish, but it was sounding like he was asked to take out the trash or something. He wasn't really. Fearsome foursome. All right, four guys that the Cardinals needed something from. They needed some help. Big names, bad years. Jamie Moyer. I have a great stat about this. A former Cub again. He comes here in 1991, so very early in his career, but he was not good early. He has one of the best baseball reference pages ever. I'm going to give some highlights here, but as a Cardinal, 0-5 in 7 starts early in the year, 5.74 ERA. He's released. That's 1991. In 2012, he's still pitching for the Colorado Rockies. Just put that and think about that. At 38 years old. I'm looking at something else. I'm sorry. He pitched 30. He had 30 plus starts, except 1 year from 1997 to 2008, mostly with the Mariners. So he's really good. But here's my favorite stat. I should know how many wins he has. Let's say he has 270 wins. I think it's right around there total. He had 0 as a Cardinal. That for a Cardinal pitcher, that's the most wins by a Cardinal to never win a game as a Cardinal. I don't know if that makes sense, but.
It would. A short career in one uniform versus a long career in another uniform. And I'm sure there's a lot of cool baseball trivia surrounding Jamie Moore, who was on that Philadelphia 09 our 08 World Championship team. And was actually pretty good for them. But yeah, years in Seattle, Jamie Moore was like a fine wine. He just kept getting better, and you pitch through all the eras, before and during the steroid era and after it, and it was still kind of the same guy, which is just mind blowing. A baseball lifer just on the field itself, it almost seems.
I believe he was 48 when he made his last pitch, he's 49 years old in the Colorado Rockies. And that's like I'm still ways away from 49. I can't even get the ball to my stepson right now when I try throwing it to him. All right, last one. Fearsome foursome. Big names, bad years. Cardinals needed help. They go to 1995 and they ask for Danny Jackson for that help. Didn't work out. Do you remember Danny Jackson's year?
Danny Jackson, I don't really.
Yeah, he pitched in 1998 as a Red. I think he won the Cy Young. He was 23-8. Even in 1994 with the Phillies, he was 14-6. He comes here 2-12, 5.90 ERA. I believe this is Walt Jocketty's first free agent signing. Luckily, it's his worst because they got better after this. You start with your worst and you keep getting better. That's what Walt Jocketty did. Danny Jackson. The 1995 Cardinals don't have a real special place in Cardinal lore, I don't think, for many people, which maybe one day we'll run through those names.
Yeah, and it was a hodgepodge. I think Ken Hill was the opening day starter that year, so that can tell you the shape of where the pitching staff was. But you remember the 90s more for the fun guys that are on the team, the position players, and especially the middle 90s. It's hard to find guys that you can really get behind on the pitching staff.
Well, that's really all I had. I had another list, but again, we've gone long enough. I think people have heard enough. But I had one other idea. Do you have any thoughts here, Mike? Because this is a team here, as I'm producing, but it's teamwork. I have one more thing we're going to do. Do you have any thoughts on anything we've talked about here today, or anything you'd like to share with the people listening here on Here's the Pitch?
No, I just say we love talking topics here, and we kind of try to come up with them on our own, and just things that might not be too relevant to the current situation, trying to take, I'd say, contrarian viewpoint of the normal everyday topics. So if there's something that you'd like to dive into or hear two guys go in depth on, Brad has a lot of background within the Cardinals organization and working with Fox Sports Midwest and being in just about every spring training there has been and relationships with the guys. So we'll dig into any topic, and it's a fan's perspective, but it's also some people that have been around the game as well. So we'll get there. That was
well written by me and well read by you. Good job, Mike. So my thing has always been, I love the numbers thing. I love thinking about who wore the number, why did they get to wear that number, and how wrong it looked for, like I said, like a Wilson Delgado to wear John Tudor's number. Makes no sense to me. So I always enjoy that, but then you get to talk about those seasons a little bit. The last thing I was going to do is I have some baseball cards here, Mike.
Ooh, what year?
This is 1989 Topps. Is that okay with you?
Okay, that's fine.
I'm going to try it right now. I'm going to try to open them. I'm doing like 5 things at once. And I'm going to open the pack. Here, there goes the gum. And we'll just talk about each guy we see, and that'll be the end of the show for the day.
All right.
But here's the gum.
Eek.
Came out.
Wouldn't advise that.
Here's the pack that I just opened up, just so you can see.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go here. Okay, Donnell Nixon.
Donnell Nixon from the Giants.
Nothing.
All right.
Yep, nothing. Got nothing on
Anything
him.
on the back? Read a line.
Okay,
best year.
I remember him on the 89 Giants. My eyes are really bad, so this is hard to look at. He was a rookie back then. Came up in 81 and was a bench player for the Giants on that 89 World Series team that did not win the World Series. Oh, we got another Giant. Don Robinson.
Don Robinson.
You remember him? He's going to be kind of old for you, probably.
Yeah.
This is an old guy. Pitched for the Pirates a long time, then the Giants. They pitched for the Phillies in the 90s, too. He's one of these guys that if you look him up, he hung on for a long time. Oh, God. Got a good one here. We ready for this one?
Yep. Tommy John.
Ever heard of him?
All right. Yeah, and people will just know him because of the surgery, obviously, but there's a reason why, the surgery is named after them.
All right, we got a record breaker, Wade Boggs.
Hey, Wade Boggs.
200 hits in 6 straight seasons. On the back, it says it attributes his success to a chicken diet.
Yep, and that was there's a lot of rumors surrounding Wade Boggs, and the eating chicken before every game was kind of one of those ones that he had. It was always his pregame meal, and the guy that hit for average and a special player for a Red Sox team, and then went to the Yankees, which at the time was kind of unfathomable. And later in life, you saw guys like Johnny Damon, Jacoby Ellsbury do it. But Wade Boggs was the first one, at least in my eyes, was the guy that made that jump. And because he was, a figure that was so important to the Red Sox, that was a tough transition.
Yeah, I remember him being on Cheers, and that was before Keith Hernandez did Seinfeld. He was like the first baseball celebrity I ever saw on a favorite show of mine watching it. And in 1993, I went to the All-Star game. This is when I started a cable access show, 1993, way back in the day. And we went to the All-Star game in Baltimore, and we got to the Monday night they have after the Home Run Derby. Actually was during the day back then. This is how long ago this was, 1993. Then they have this gala, And so me and my cousin are standing there with a video camera watching these guys come in. You can check this all on my YouTube channel. And I didn't know what that, like Barry Bonds comes by, and there's Ken Griffey Jr., and here comes Wade Boggs, and I said, "Hey, Wade, loved you on Cheers. You have any thoughts?" And he just didn't say anything. But that's all I had. I was overwhelmed by all the greatness that I saw.
And was he a Tampa Bay Ray at the end of his career?
Where he got his 3,000th hit, yes.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. Got Willie Upshaw. I don't have much on him. Longtime Blue Jay. This is his first year at the Indians. He's 1989 tops, not my favorite either. Okay, big one here. This is, if you were a Giants fan, this was the pack to get.
This is a big pack for you.
Matt Williams.
All right, Matt Williams.
Big player.
I remember Matt Williams mostly for the strike-shortened season and the projection that he was on from a home run standpoint, and also the team's success. And that's my Matt Williams. And I remember him hanging around the Indians in the 90s and being a big part of those teams. But yeah, Matt Williams was a solid dude.
I'm unfortunately get to see the next one that comes, and so I've been looking at this going, oh my God, I might have like $1 million in my hand. I have the Randy Johnson rookie card from Topps.
Wow, look at that. Wonderful transition, too.
Yeah, he pitched in 1989. Let's see, 20 innings, 4 games. I remember he pitched against the Cardinals, I think, twice. But that's a Randy, number 647 Topps.
Wow.
Randy Johnson.
That's big, man.
I'm going to hold on.
What's, yeah. Okay.
We'll look that up.
What's it have on the back? Just curious.
We'll go.
It is a rookie card.
Nothing.
Are those minor league stats?
Yeah. Yep.
Interesting. Is there any anecdotes that are fun on that about him?
Randy was signed as a second-round draft selection of the Expos June 9th, 1985 by Cliff Ditto and Bob Fontaine Jr.
Those guys deserve a raise.
Way to go, Cliff and Bob. Andy Hawkins, great Padre, had a no-hitter, pitched a no-hitter, and he lost against the White Sox. Remember that. We'll pass. This thing is something to get a trip to the 1990 spring training camp of your choice.
Can we still enter?
We'll try. Charlie Palaio, one of my favorite names. Not a great pitcher for the Braves. The Braves pretty bad there in 1989, but Charlie Palaio.
Yeah, the 80 stash.
Great mustache. Good call out. I used to do these on Fox, by the way. We'd open baseball cards and have Cardinals play. We'll maybe put that in here too. I'll do that right now. I'll pop that in. And they would try to see who could get the best pack. And the way they would win is if you had a good 80s mustache, it was like 10 points. If you got a Hall of Famer, it was 20 points. So you got a great Cardinal, it was like 15 points. I had to keep track of the score, so it was kind of rough. Matt Holliday kept winning, and he said, I'm only doing this once. But he actually continued the tournament. But it was a tournament of 8. My favorite one was when Mark McGwire took on Mike Aldretti, 2 Cardinal coaches from the era, opening a Topps 88 box, and Mike Aldretti pulled a Mark McGwire card. And he said, this should be a Hall of Famer, and everyone had crickets. They was like, don't say that. Tony Fernandez, rest in peace, just died a couple weeks ago. So Tony Fernandez, what a great shortstop for the Blue Jays.
Yeah.
Good, no stash there. Dave Righetti is next. Closer.
Remember him a little bit.
Yep, threw a no-hitter for the Yankees. And then was a closer later after that. Ron Tingley, never heard of him.
Mm-mm.
Okay, so after that Randy Johnson card, we're going down. Jim Snyder's a manager of the Mariners. Remember when you get a manager card? It was like, oh, get that shit.
Get out of here with that, yeah.
Luis Salazar, good player. He was a Cub for a while. He's with the Padres a long time. And then Glenn Wilson, very generic baseball name, generic baseball player, Glenn Wilson. 1989 Topps. That's what we do here on the show.
All right. Very cool.
Okay.
I think I'm going to go find a 90s pack for us later in there. I think that would be fun to see as well now that we're a decade down the road.
Yeah, I have a few more for the next time. I got some. These Donruss, I don't even know what years these are. I guess if I look.
Goodness.
This is 1990 here. But we'll do some of these next time. Let's see what this is. 88 Donruss. Mike, I think that's all I have for you today. This was big fun. we'll be doing these regularly, it sounds like. It sounds like we both have a little time during quarantine time.
Yep. We'll keep that between us. But yeah.
But no, this is what I've always kind of wanted, just to sit here and BS. And Mike is a very wealth of knowledge of baseball, and he understands my sense of humor too. So this is, hopefully you're enjoying it out there. Mike, I hope you're enjoying it as well.
Yeah. Hey, I got to run. My wife is yelling at me to take the trash. Talk to you later.
Bye, everybody.